Welcome to our fourth lecture in our keto series called Sustaining the Keto Lifestyle for Weight Loss, Health, and Longevity. We are going to talk about the cycle of consistency, natural sweeteners, artificial sweeteners, good fats, bad fats, the causes of carb cravings, how to beat carb cravings, 10 strategies to help with the diet, 5 ways to test your ketone levels, and then the top 10 reasons why you might not be losing weight on keto. So we're going to talk about all of those. When I first started the keto diet, one of the first negative responses that I got was, that's not sustainable. You'll stop. And of course that just made me mad because I was feeling good and losing weight, and I thought, well, I'm just going to prove them wrong because I want to do this. And I realized that it comes down to a cycle of willpower, consistency, and passion. And they just keep going round. So as you're consistent, it fuels your passion, which increases your willpower, which fosters your consistency. So how do you have the willpower to stay consistent long enough that you get to the passionate stage? Well, the nice thing about keto is that most people lose some weight right away. Now, granted, this is usually water weight, but it's exciting to get on the scale and see it actually change. And so sometimes just that little bit is motivating enough to keep going. We started at our house with 3 of us doing keto all together, and so that helped to have that support for each other. And then my daughter came home from college and she decided to join us, so that made 4. But then my 2 daughters would go out to social events and they would cheat. And at one point, I made each of them give me 50 of their own dollars to me, and if they cheated, then I got to keep it. So they could tattle on each other, which I encouraged, and that worked for a bit. And I even tried to make them keto-approved treats to take with them to the social event so that they wouldn't feel deprived when they were there. And that actually worked really well. You just have to plan that out and make sure that it's ready beforehand. So support is very important. And you can join our private Facebook group to get that support. That's a wonderful place. You get lots of information and individual attention there. So most of us have enough willpower to give something new a try for at least a couple weeks, a couple months. So in that time period, it's crucial to start seeing results or it's hard to continue. So the initial weight loss is motivating. And if you experience the carb flu or the keto flu, then sometimes that's discouraging because you feel horrible. So it's important to take supplements from day 1 of starting keto to avoid or at least lessen the effects of the keto flu. And we were talking before the meeting a little bit, and some natural ways to do that is bone broth. And we make a fresh lemonade with added pink Himalayan salt to have those trace minerals and things like that. But even with those, I found I had to take some supplements to help me, especially with constipation and other things that we'll talk about later. But if you are taking something, the potassium and the sodium and the magnesium, then it will help a lot with those keto flu symptoms. I didn't know it when I started keto, so I experienced the keto flu. My daughter, when she came from college, I knew about it, so I made sure she had all that. She didn't experience one negative effect. Of course, she's young and she's in college, but she went from totally bad college food to coming home and switching. So they say that's worse with your diet. If the worse your diet is, switching over, you might experience worse symptoms of that. But it's just like a flu, and that is a whole another lecture we did on keto flu. But I also have an email that you can email for advice on keto supplements that help, and that is ketomamadvice@gmail.com. So as you stay consistent and you get past that initial couple week stage of switching over to burning fat, then the ketones kick in. And this is exciting because for me what happened was my whole system was flooded with energy, and I felt it. Did you guys feel that? Your mind is clearer, you have more energy. I was so flooded, I actually couldn't even sleep. I had so much energy all of a sudden when I started burning ketones. So you have to be careful with that because you do need to sleep. It's important to sleep. But that increased brain power and all of the energy that flooded my body, empowered me. And this testifies to you, when you experience this, that you're on the right path, which is a path of health. And you can overcome any hurdle, and you can live life to the fullest. And I feel like I've just been awakened out of a sleep of the sad American diet. I can't say enough good about this diet and what it's done for me. And you'll also experience other benefits that you didn't even think about related to keto diet. So obviously, the very first one people think of is weight loss, because that's what everybody wants. But for us, we experienced things we didn't even imagine. We never had a chronic disease before we started this diet. But after starting the diet, my back pain, I have severe scoliosis, and I've been in severe pain since 9 years old. It's really bad. They've told me time and time again to get surgery, and I haven't done it. And so I would experience pain constantly. Anyway, this pain completely disappeared. I have no back pain because this is an anti-inflammatory diet. And so my inflammation went down and I don't have the pain. And I have noticed if I don't supplement with the things that we were talking about with, because you lose a lot of your minerals when you are on the keto diet, because you don't hold on to them like you do when you're eating carbs, which is in a different lecture, but I do have to take my supplements too. But the combination of those two things, I have no pain. And my seasonal allergies totally disappeared. And I never anticipated that. I was a horrible case of allergies, and those went away. My husband experienced some different little things, like he doesn't snore anymore. Whoa! I mean, before this, we were looking into all these snoring devices and trying to figure out how can we get rid of this, because I wasn't sleeping. I think he was okay, but I don't know. But he had to get up in the night a lot to go to the bathroom, and he doesn't have that problem. So those are just some little things. You'll experience all these little, my skin is so much better. It's amazing. All these little things that happen that you don't even think about with this diet. So that is really neat. And when those things happen, that's motivating to keep going too. So chronic disease. There are a lot of chronic disease that this diet helps, and the research to support it. And so if you have a chronic disease, then it's motivating to start the diet to get over the pain of that disease. And then as you see improvement in that disease, it motivates you to keep going. So the good things that happen with this is the motivation, and that's the willpower, consistency, passion cycle. My husband said, you have to love your health and your weight more than you love your bad foods. And he actually said comfort foods, but I say bad foods because you can make foods that are comforting on the keto diet. So I don't want to just say comfort foods, because they're bad foods. So to get past this drive to resort to bad foods, you have to make your favorite bad foods good for you by tweaking them. Some obvious tweaks that you can do is to switch your glycemic sugars, which obviously white sugar is really bad, and high fructose corn syrup, of course, would be even worse, but those things for natural sweeteners that have little or no effect on your blood sugar. So some keto-approved sweeteners are stevia, monk fruit, and erythritol. And of course, you would want to avoid chemical sweeteners. Now in this, it's really probably hard to see, but this is a great chart. I like it because it lists the sweetener, then the GI is the glycemic index, how it affects your blood sugar, and then whether it's natural, sugar, alcohol, or artificial processed, then the net carbs and the calories. And so stevia is really pushed in the keto diet, and you can see why, because it doesn't have any effect on your blood sugar, and it's natural, and it's low net carbs and really low calories as well. And so there's that one. Then there's allulose and inulin, and those ones, I've seen them in some different packaged things that you can get at natural food stores. I haven't used those myself. Monk fruit I've used, and it's really good. You guys use that one? Yeah. And that has a 0 glycemic effect, and it's natural. So, and then erythritol, it's a sugar alcohol, and any of the sugar alcohols you have to be careful with, because sometimes they cause some digestive disturbance, some diarrhea, if you have a lot of it. And so I've experienced that a little bit with erythritol. I haven't experienced it with xylitol, but some people experience it with xylitol and don't with erythritol, so it's interesting. But the maltitol, it's really high on the index, but that is in all of those low sugar foods, that's what they substitute it for, and it's still affecting your blood sugar. So maltitol is not the best choice there. It's still less than sugar, but you know, I just stay away from that one. And then these are artificial ones. This chart, still small to read, but it shows that some of the artificial ones that I want to say by now everybody knows these are bad. This doesn't seem like you know by now, but really they don't. But some of the brand names you would recognize, of course, is Equal and NutraSweet and Sweet and Low, Splenda. So those are artificial sweeteners, and you don't use those at all because they are not recognized by the body. They're not natural. They're highly processed and toxic. So before I go to that one, I like to use stevia in drinks because stevia has a little bit of a bitter aftertaste sometimes, depending on the brand you get. And I don't notice it in drinks. Do you notice it in drinks?
She does.
You don't like it?
Yes, I don't like it.
Yes, she does not like it. But you like it?
It's better than some others. I actually prefer sucralose over anything else.
And is sucralose is one of these, right?
Yeah, it is. Now I'm not talking about Splenda because Splenda has maltodextrin.
Yes.
I'm talking about absolutely pure sucralose.
Mm-hmm.
So.
So it probably tastes good. Does it taste good?
Mm-hmm.
But it is artificial.
Mm-hmm.
So personal choice.
Yeah.
But we make homemade lemonade with stevia. I don't notice any aftertaste with that. Hot chocolate, herbal teas, if you drink coffee. But some people say stevia is horrible in coffee. So you just have to try different ones. Xylitol has a little minty flavor to it, and I prefer that for keto ice cream. The other ones, I don't think it tastes good in ice cream. But xylitol I powder in the blender, and it tastes good in ice cream. And it's not the lowest, but it's still pretty low. So I don't mind that one too much. But I like a stevia erythritol blend or monk fruit for most other things that you can, if you get crystallized form, you could bake with it and things. So you really have to look at the labels. Like he said, there's maltodextrin in that. I had a stevia in my food storage that I thought, oh, good, I'm going to bring this out and use it because I need some. And I didn't look at the back. I started using it. And then after a while, I looked at the back and it had maltodextrin. And I thought, are you kidding me? They say that that is a worse effect on your glycemic index than sugar. So that went in the trash. You really have to read the labels on anything you buy and make sure that it's not mixed because they fill them with things, especially stevias because there's not much to the stevia, and so they fill it with all this other stuff. So switching out your sweeteners is an absolute must, and then you can find ways to make your favorite foods with the low glycemic sweeteners. Another switch out is grains. You can find ways to make breads and baked goods without grain flours. And this is especially important in the beginning when you're switching over because you don't want to feel deprived. You're really used to a lot of breads and grain-based products. And so if you can make things keto, like cookies and pizza crust and muffins, biscuits, rolls, bagels, brownies, cakes, pancakes, waffles, all of those things with a substitute, then that will probably help you stay there. Now, we used to do that in the beginning when we switched over to the keto diet. We would make those things. And then we found we were overdosing on them because when you switch out, you use almond flour or coconut flour as a substitute for flour, and that's a lot of nuts. So that can be constipating. You've got to be careful. So we use them for special occasions more now. But there are plenty of recipes out there. There's the fathead dough you probably heard of. And it's like cream cheese, eggs, and almond flour or something. Anyways, you can use it with a lot of things. Pizza crusts, muffins, biscuits, rolls, bagels. And then you can use the almond and coconut flour for cookies, brownies, cakes, pancakes, waffles. And there's also a cloud bread out there that mimics a Wonder Bread, and it's mostly like egg whites. But I have recipes on ketomamas.com, and there are literally thousands of recipes out there. So you will never have to feel deprived. It really is great. You just have to prepare ahead of time. And honestly, I'm coming from this from someone that does cook. And some people don't cook at all, so this is a little harder. And a friend of mine here suggested, he says, you need to make a keto dudes because we do not cook. So this is a whole different project. We need to have keto dudes instead of keto mamas. But there are people that find products that are pre-made, but you got to learn to make some things at home. For hamburger buns, you can use the bread dough recipes that I talked about, or just wrap it in lettuce. That's what we do now. It's so much fresher. It tastes delicious. We don't even do the breads anymore. We did in the beginning. We thought, oh my gosh, we have to have a bun, but we don't have to have a bun, and it is so delicious just with lettuce. Another thing I've seen is the cooked portobello mushroom tops. You use on top, of your burger, and those are delicious. And then we wrap our sandwiches too in lettuce instead of bread, but you can make bread. We switch out pasta for zucchini noodles or spaghetti squash. Zucchini noodles are just zucchini that's been spiralized to look like noodles, and you just cook them up the same. Like you can boil them or saute them or something, and then you just put your sauce over it that you'd have with pasta. And there's even a noodle out there called shirataki noodle, and it's made with is it konjac root? Konjac. And that's mostly fiber, so that's good for low carb. And then you could switch out white potatoes for cauliflower. I have a mashed cauliflower recipe that mimics potatoes. It's delicious. And you can use cauliflower like a mock potato salad, or you can use cauliflower instead of rice and make a mock rice. I have a fried rice that I do with cauliflower. So that's the great thing about using vegetables as alternatives to the grains and the potatoes, is that you don't feel heavy after you eat them. You know, after you eat a lot of bread or pasta, it's like, oh, I'm full. And you're like, whoa, I gotta go, like take a nap. But when you eat this way, you feel like, oh, I got my pasta or whatever it is, but you still feel good, you're light, and it's great. So that's awesome. Now, another thing you've got to think about is the good fats and bad fats. And I've gone over this before, but you need to go through your kitchen and you need to get rid of the bad oils and replace them with good oils. And this is really important to the keto diet. Now, you've probably heard of clean keto versus dirty keto, and a dirty keto, of course, would not pay attention at all to the fats. It would be whatever, and it wouldn't pay attention to where the meat is coming from or the dairy is coming from. But a clean keto is trying to eat these God-made fats versus the bad fats. And I just noticed a typo, keto mams. But don't look at that. So coconut oil, avocado oil, fish oil, olive oil, butter or ghee, eggs, palm oil, MCT oil or SCT oil, and tallow. If you don't know what MCT and SCT, there's medium chain triglycerides and short chain triglycerides. And this MCT comes from coconut oil, but it's straight ketones. So it doesn't even have to go through the digestive process. It just goes right into your system as ketones. So a lot of people use that as a jump start into ketosis and to keep them going with ketosis. Do you guys do that at all? MCT?
Bulletproof fat. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then the bad fats are just man-made process. They go through extreme process and refinement to even get those oils. And by that time, it's so unrecognizable to the body. And it's crazy because these bad fats, they're in everything, especially packaged things. They use these because they're cheaper. They won't use the good stuff. And so that helps them sell it because it drives the price down, but it's really bad for our health. And up to 30% of our calories in the American diet come from these bad oils. And those go to every cell of your body and affect you in a negative way because it's not recognizable to the body. And you need fats for the cell membrane. Every part of your body needs that good fat to build and repair. Your hormones, your brain, your skin, your hair, all these things need these good fats. So that's a really important switch to keto in my mind. Okay. Another thing you need to do is get rid of all the tempting carbs in your house. So the breads, packaged cookies, chips, cereal, crackers, anything that is instant, ready to be grabbed and eaten, needs to go out because it's going to tempt you. As you're transitioning over from being a sugar burner to a fat burner, there's going to be times where you're still hungry and you think, I don't have anything ready to eat. And you walk into the pantry and you see cereal or chips or crackers or whatever it is, and you're like, I'm just going to have a little of that because I'm so hungry. If you get rid of that, don't have that in there to tempt you. It's harder if you have people in the house that are not eating keto. But that's back to that willpower thing, because I'm not tempted by those things anymore. Whereas in the very beginning, it was kind of like, oh, I think I kind of want to eat that. So instead, have easy keto things to eat. So we always keep eggs in our fridge because they're so easy. You can just always make some eggs really fast. Avocado, you can slice it open and put some salt on it and eat it if you need to. Have something, you know. Nuts, cheese, meat are really easy to grab. You just have to be careful that that's not all you're eating, because you've got to get your vegetables in too. When we first started the diet, we went out and found protein bars that were really low carb, like 3 net carb, you know, and we always have those in hand just in case. It's like, oh my God, I don't have this. And that actually helped us transition, but we don't even buy those anymore. So there comes a point where you kind of have crutches until you don't need them. Not saying that that's bad, but it is a lot of protein if you ate a lot of them. So you have to be careful with that. But we don't have the sudden strong cravings that we're going to talk about here anymore that drive us to make bad food choices. So we wanted to talk about this because if you can get past this cravings part, it will help you sustain. And cravings aren't due to a lack of willpower or a weak mindset, but instead it's often due to maybe an infection that you don't even realize you have, or stress, or nutrient deficiencies. And a lot of people don't ever talk about that, but sugar cravings can be from low levels of vital nutrients that the body needs. For instance, chromium is a trace mineral that's only required in small amounts. It's low levels of chromium that cause glucose intolerance, which is often accompanied by anxiety and carb cravings. Interesting. So consequently, supplementing with chromium may assist with glucose metabolism when it's taken with a higher carb meal. Magnesium is often low with people with poor blood sugar control. So when blood sugar is elevated, then excess magnesium is often lost through the urine, and this happens a lot in keto. Considering magnesium is involved in over 300 processes in the body, including energy production, and ensuring you get enough magnesium is vital. So that's another one. And B vitamins. They are directly involved in glucose metabolism, and they serve as cofactors in several enzymatic processes in which sugar is converted into ATP. So without adequate B vitamins, energy production is inhibited and cravings happen. Okay, so that's a possibility there. Causes of cravings, insulin resistance. So a lot of people have this. A lot of people have diabetes in our country. It's really high percent, and a really high percent of pre-diabetes, which means they're just right before going into that diabetes state. And so insulin resistance means that they're having trouble with their insulin levels, and hypoglycemia is kind of the other side of the scale, that if you have that could cause cravings, then you need to eat often because you're having that blood sugar problem. A poor diet, that just fuels it. You know, you eat, it's called the horrible sweetener they put in everything.
Aspartame.
Yes, aspartame too, but more concentrated than sugar. I can't think of it.
High fructose.
Yes, high fructose corn syrup. It's going to make you crave more of it. It's crazy. And that's in so many things. So poor diet, dopamine dysregulation. Now dopamine, there's lots of things we do that give us dopamine. And in fact, one of them is the screens. We just heard on the way over here that almost half of our time, waking hours, are spent in front of screens. And we actually get a dopamine rush with all of the social media and all the different things. It's really interesting. So sometimes to get that dopamine, we're turning to our food, but we want to turn to natural sources, like get some sunshine, get outside, breathe in a good air and get some sunshine to get your dopamine instead of a bad way to get dopamine. Then we've got stress. dehydration, which I really always struggle with drinking enough water. Like they say you need to drink half your body weight in ounces of water every day. So for me, that's 7 or 8 glasses of water. And sometimes I am probably constantly dehydrated. So that is something that can cause cravings. And they say that your need to drink and your need to eat are right by each other in the brain. So sometimes we really need to drink, but we think, oh, that's hungry. And so we'll start eating something when really we should be drinking something. So that's interesting too. Poor sleep. I have 2 kids in my bed. I know this is my problem right here. I've got a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old that is still in my bed. We have a king-size bed, but Tyler sleeps like on one side over here, and I am literally sandwiched between the 2 of them. So I am looking for this to be good for me. Poor sleep. I need some good sleep. Gut infections like an overgrowth of candida obviously would affect your cravings. My daughter had this when she was young, and she just was eating sugar, feeding that candida in her gut. When we found out it was candida, we took her off all sugar, and we were really strict, and it cleared up, and that was wonderful. So, and then we talked about the nutrient deficiencies. So another thing that, those are the causes. Okay. Now this is to stop the cravings. Okay. So eating keto, that really helps with cravings. We don't even have cravings anymore. Metabolic reset. So sometimes your metabolism needs to be reset, and keto will do that for you. Also fasting resets your metabolism. Low glycemic sweeteners, we talked about that. Switching those out. Organic acids. So this is apple cider vinegar, ACV, and lemon. Those are great natural acids that help to stop cravings. So if you get a craving, take a teaspoon and put in some water of apple cider vinegar. You can put some little sweetener in there, maybe some cinnamon. Drink that down, that will help. Or if you can't stand apple cider vinegar, then you could do some lemon, which is delicious. And you just squeeze that in there and have some sweetener with that. Some salt, some mineral salt. So good. So that helps. Regular exercise involving the large muscle groups. So sometimes it's like you have a craving, just go and do some air squats. I've heard that helps. Kind of funny. Get good sleep, like we talked about. Get sunlight, water, and electrolytes. Electrolytes are any mineral that's negatively charged, but the ones people recognize are the sodium, magnesium, potassium, calcium. Those things are lost when you start keto. You start to lose those because on the American diet, you're eating a lot of carbs, and that insulin state being up causes your body to hold on to all those things. Then when you get rid of the carbs, you start losing all that water weight, and it goes out. All these electrolytes go out in your urine, and so you have to replace those every day. And that's why I really stress, if you haven't started keto yet, start day 1 taking some kind of supplement, electrolytes, to not experience negative effects. Fat fasting, this is where you could do a bone broth. Just drink that all day. You're getting that fat, and that helps with cravings. Putting fat in your drinks, like your coffee. A lot of people put something in their coffee, MCT oil or butter or something. So that helps with cravings. And then the MCT oils, we talked about that. It's that straight ketones that comes from the coconut oil. Adding that to your food, you can drizzle it on salad, on anything you're eating, really, to put it in your drinks, your smoothies. It doesn't have a flavor. It's just, there's no flavor. So you can add it to anything and get that fat in. Using the chromium after meals. I use a supplement that has all 60 minerals in it that you need, essential minerals, and so chromium's in there, and I'm covered on that. Test for gut infections. Sip on some bone broth, that's that fat fasting, and then using the I don't know if I can say this. Exogenous ketones, and that is the MCT oil is one of those. So gotta quit laughing at me. All right. Okay, so we talked about a little bit, just touched on planning things out. You have to plan your meals. Figure out what you're going to eat for the week. Shop for those things. Make sure you have the ingredients, and try to at least be good about. You know, with keto, you start out eating 3 meals a day, and really you shouldn't snack. A lot of people say, what should I snack on? It's best not to snack because every time you eat, your insulin goes up. And every time your insulin goes up, it tells your body to store fat. So it is better to eat 3 meals and no snacks. Even better is 2 meals with no snacks, and you can even get to a point of 1 meal and no snacks. And that sounds horrible, but when you get your ketones going, you don't have the cravings, you have energy, your body's burning its own fat, and you don't need to eat all the time. You feel good, and you shouldn't eat if you're not hungry. But there's emotional eating and social eating, and those kind of things are a little trickier. But or just because in our mind we say, oh, it's morning, it's time to eat. But actually, if you just turn back around and go out of the kitchen and start your work or whatever, then you realize you don't even need breakfast. And what that does is it gives you longer periods of time without your food, which was another lecture on intermittent fasting. And that allows your body to heal and repair and not have those constant insulin spikes. So there's people out there that say, oh, you should eat lots of meals throughout the day to help your metabolism, to keep that metabolism burning. But what that is doing is every time you eat is spiking insulin and you're storing fat. Now, if you want to boost the metabolism, then you can use fasting. We'll do that, actually. And you don't want to go into too little calories. We'll talk about that in a minute. So this is something that I do to help. Oh, it's not the one I was thinking of. Okay, this doesn't have a slide. So maintaining cyclical ketosis. Now, a cyclical ketogenic diet is more flexible than the standard version, and it helps to sustain it. So you can eat keto for several days, and then you can follow it with a couple days of eating a little bit higher carb level. But when I talk about adding some carbs or doing a higher carb level, I don't mean, oh, on this day I'm going to eat lots of white sugar and white flour and all those things that you don't want to go there. When you add a carb, it's a good healthy carb, and I'll give you some examples. But unlike short and long-term ketosis, the goal is to stay in ketosis all the time, but to make the diet more flexible. So one way in a cyclical ketogenic diet is going 3 days on the low carb and then going slightly higher carb followed by 3 days. So it'd be like 3 days and then you do a carb and then 3 days you're doing low carb again. And this cycles the body in and out of a state of ketosis, and it's beneficial for hormone balance while keeping your inflammation low. Or you could do a once a week carb up. A lot of people do that. They'll eat ketogenic all week and then they'll just add some carbs on Friday, or maybe they go out to eat, but still you want to pick good choices. And it's all according to your own body. Some people need to eat a little more carbs during the week of their monthly cycle or the week before their monthly cycle. So it's important to kind of find that balance in your body because of hormones. And a carb up is adding a healthy carb to your meal, like a sweet potato or a yam, pumpkin, carrots, beets, red quinoa, the ancient colorful grains. So a higher carb day with 2 servings of antioxidant-rich, low glycemic foods like berries. You can have a little bit of berries, but you should really not have more than a 1/4 cup a day if you're starting into this diet and want to get into that fat burning state. And as you're in the fat burning state, you can adjust and you can see how you feel. And if you want to test your ketones as to how much fat carb you can play with. But, or it could be 1 to 2 servings of starchy vegetables, which is that potato, yam, sweet potato, carrot or beet. And then allow yourself to go up to about 80 grams of net carbs of carbohydrate. That would be considered a carb up day. So there are certain cells in our body, about 20%, that need carbs. The rest can run on ketones, but blood cells, for instance, need to have the glucose. But there is carbs in just about every vegetable. I mean, the only thing that doesn't have carbs is like butter and animal fat. Other than that, everything has a little bit of carbs in it. So Now, here is the top ketogenic diet strategies. You guys have probably read them all. No, is this it? How am I on this one? Did I skip? Did I go too far? No? Okay, maybe I don't have one for this. Okay, don't look at that. Top 10 reasons you might not be losing weight on the ketogenic diet. Okay, number 1, maybe you're not actually in ketosis. You don't ever get there. And I'll show you in a minute how to test that. Number 2, you're not eating satiating meals. What satiates you is the fat in the meal. So if you're adding enough fat in your meal, it feels satisfying. And so maybe you're not doing that. Number 3, you're missing hidden carbohydrates. An example of this is dairy and nuts. So you have to eat those with caution because, for instance, cream. You look on the back of a cream container and it only gives you a tablespoon size portion and says, oh, less than a gram of net carbs. And you think, oh, okay, there's like hardly any carbs in here. I can have lots of cream. But if you have a cup of cream in a recipe or something, that's like 6 carbs. So there's hidden carbs in dairy, and so you have to watch that. Another thing would be like yogurt, especially you cannot get any sweetened yogurts for sure, but yogurt has a little more carbs, and so does sour cream and things, cream cheese. Anyway, you have to watch it. So if you eat a lot of dairy and nuts to feel satisfied, then that'll increase your carbs, your calories, and your glycemic effect, and you won't lose weight doing that. So watch that. Number 4 is you're eating too much fat. I didn't think you could do that because I told my husband, you can't eat too much fat because you either burn the fat you eat or you excrete it. Your body does not store the fat that you eat. It stores the carbs that you eat and it converts it to fat on your body in these nice little packages all over for later use. But we never get to that later use because we're eating things that never allow us to get to that fat burning state. But you can eat too much fat because if you're eating a lot of fat, your body's burning that and it never gets to your own fat. So there's a balance. You have to not have too much fat, but not have too little. You're not eating enough calories is number 5, and that is interesting because we think if we just restrict our calories, we'll lose weight. But what happens when you restrict your calories is your metabolism slows down. So then you're not burning fat either, and that's not good. So it's a gentle balance there too. You don't want to be eating too many calories, but if you've gone too low, then that's going to backfire on you. Number 6 is you're getting too much exercise, which another one's like, what? Can you really do that? But yes, you can, because the main type of exercise that is abused is chronic cardio. So this is like repetitive aerobic training. It increases your appetite because your body feels deprived and it wants those calories back. So then you lose in this battle that you have with your willpower versus your biology, and your biology always wins, right? So you end up overeating to compensate for those calories that you burned. So an example of exercise that most people can do pretty easily is Monday, you just do 15 to 20 minutes of upper body resistance. Then the next day you do 15, 20 minutes of lower body resistance. And then the next day, Wednesday, you go for a walk for 30 minutes. Then Thursday you do upper body, Friday you do lower, and then Saturday, Sunday you go out and do some recreational activities with your family, go for a walk. So it's not too bad to be able to do some exercise. Now, if you're a high level athlete and you do high intensity workouts like CrossFit, then you can work with a trainer to achieve your goals there and stay in the state of ketosis and modify that according to what's happening in your body. And if you're battling a chronic disease, then you don't do exercise. Just focus on breathing and stretching, maybe yoga or Tai Chi, something like that. That's lower impact and light, elliptical exercise, those kind of things. Because you need to heal first. Then as you start feeling better, you can add things. But if you're in a chronic state of disease or like adrenal failure or something, you wouldn't want to do exercise, extreme exercise. And number 7, you're experiencing stress. And that happens to like everyone every day. So it's really frustrating about stress because it's like you're trying to be so good and you are doing this diet and you're eating right and you're taking supplements and you're doing, and then stress wipes it all out No matter what you're doing, stress ruins it for us. So what happens with stress is your cortisol hormone goes up. I'm sure you've heard of it. So it stimulates that fight or flight situation, and cortisol has the ability to channel glucose to the muscles during the body's response to stress, and it plays a major role in keeping us alert and awake and motivated and necessary for our survival. It's also responsible for storing fat, so especially around our stomachs, making weight loss a challenge. And the real problem kicks in when cortisol production becomes chronic due to constant stress, and so that fat around your stomach just starts to increase. Number 8 is you're not sleeping enough, and we talked about that. It can prevent weight loss. So a lack of sleep can throw off your circadian rhythm and increase the stress of metabolic problems. All of your organs follow a certain timing known as your internal body clock. And it's disrupted. It can put you in severe disadvantage. Maximum fat loss can only be achieved with adequate sleep. So we gotta figure that one out, hun. You and me. Sleep is also essential for balancing hormones, especially hunger hormones. So you may have heard of ghrelin. Ghrelin is the hormone that your body produces telling you that you're hungry. And then leptin is the hormone that your body produces that says, I'm full. And both of those hormones are affected by a lack of sleep. So your ghrelin goes up and your levels of leptin go down when you don't get enough sleep, and that is bad news for weight loss. Some people are eating so badly that they actually don't even have that hormone produced that tells them they're full. It never triggers. And so they are never satisfied, and they are constantly eating, trying to feel that. And it never happens. So getting your hormones stabilized happens with this diet. It's really amazing how it can balance your hormones. Another thing that might keep you from weight loss is if you have food sensitivities. And the most common is dairy. And that, of course, is your cheese, cream, butter, yogurt, ghee, all those things. So you have to know your own body and know if it's reacting badly to dairy. So it has lactose, or maybe you're allergic to gluten. That can cut, but you know what? You don't have gluten on this diet, so that's nice. Inflammation prevents weight loss, increases weight gain. And so you experiment with different foods and you pay attention to what makes you feel worse or better to know if you have a sensitivity, because that will totally stop your weight from going anywhere. Because every time you eat that bad food, inflammation goes up and your body's in a stress response and you won't lose weight. Number 10 is leptin resistance. So I talked about leptin is that hormone that makes you feel full, and the resistance is what I was referring to earlier. Leptin is the fat controlling hormone, so it tells your brain when your body is satiated. So it can know when to stop eating. Leptin is produced by your fat cells. It's mainly responsible for regulating how many calories we eat, how many we burn, and how much fat we carry on our bodies. Leptin resistance is when you have plenty of leptin, but the messages are not being received. And the major causes of leptin resistance include funky sleep patterns, a diet full of processed foods, overeating, and stress. It's not that overweight individuals don't have enough leptin, it's that the signals leptin is sending their brains aren't being registered properly. So the signal tells them they're not satiated and they don't have enough energy, and it makes them reach for more food. And we talked about that a little bit. So all right, I think I'm finally on this now. So you probably read them already. Stay hydrated. Practice intermittent fasting. We did a whole lecture on that, but a quick overview of intermittent fasting is when you go for several hours without food. We do it naturally when we sleep. So if we stop eating at 8 p.m. and we go to bed, we're fasting through the night and we don't eat again maybe till 8 in the morning. That's a 12-hour fast. But with intermittent fasting, you want to stretch it even further. Maybe don't eat till noon, so it's like 16-hour fast. And some people go maybe 18 hours. Some people go like 23 hours and they just eat the one meal. And that strategy is really, really good for weight loss. Consuming enough good salts. We talked about that before the meeting. Someone said just drink some pickle juice. You're getting that salt and the bone broth, those kind of things have those good salt. And you want to switch out your salt. That's one thing when you talk about switching out is regular table salt. Switch it out with pink Himalayan salt or sea salt because that has the minerals in it and it's really lovely for the body instead of the things that they add into the table salt that's processed. And getting regular exercise. I talked about that. Improving your bowel mobility. This is really important because I've joined a lot of keto groups online and I hear it again and again and again. I'm so constipated. I haven't gone to the bathroom in 5 days or whatever. And that just sounds like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad and I want to just tell them what to do. But it's one of the biggest challenges people have on this diet. So if you're constipated, then you're not able to remain in ketosis. And this dries up your stress and your blood sugar. And it's usually due to some of these things I'm going to talk about. Either you have a pre-existing struggle with your small intestinal bacteria overgrowth like candida or something like that, or you're not consuming enough fibrous vegetables or fermented foods, which are lovely, sauerkraut and different things, drinks and tonics that also have fermentation. It's really good for the gut, or you're just dehydrated and you need to drink more water. And then the other thing that we've stressed a couple of times is that inadequate electrolyte consumption, because when you go to the hospital with constipation, they don't give you fiber, they give you magnesium. And so you're losing your sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium in particular. You lose more than that actually, but those are the ones people notice because the sodium, you're dizzy, you're faint, you have those flu type symptoms. Potassium and magnesium for the constipation is really noticeable. So take that. And then chronic stress will shut down those contractions that we need to go to the bathroom. So, so correct this with consuming fermented foods we talked about. So there's kimchi, sauerkraut, apple cider vinegar, pickles, and then doing an extra mineral supplement, consuming lots of water and adding pink salt to your food to get the sodium. And drink a green drink every day. Get the vegetables in there. That increases those potassium, magnesium, calcium as well. So what else did we talk about? Don't eat too much protein. We actually talked about it before the meeting a little bit. There's some different ideas about that. One idea is that eating too much protein converts into sugar. Other people say that doesn't happen. But with protein, for me, because it is hard on the kidneys and the liver and the body to not, personally, I don't like to go over 19% because that's where they've shown studies, anything over that causes aging. And so keeping that low helps with the nice anti-aging effects of the ketogenic diet. And choose your carbs wisely. You want to get them in your vegetables. Eat as many vegetables as you want. Just not the white potato or some of those underground vegetables. Save those for the carb up days, the good ones. But don't count your vegetables. Just eat them. Those are good carbs to choose. Use the MCT oil whenever possible. We talked about that. Keep stress down, improve your sleep. So there's blood ketone meters. They say those are the most accurate. They're also the most expensive. Breath testing, not as accurate, but more accurate than urine test strips. And then blood glucose levels. And then check how you feel. That's the one I do. For me, I personally don't care as much that I'm constantly in ketosis. That's not my goal. My goal is to be metabolically flexible so that I can switch back and forth from being sugar burner, fat burner, no problem. No problem. My body's used to it. And if I'm feeling good, if I have energy, if my mind is clear, if I'm losing weight, or if my body composition is changing. Some people don't lose weight, but their body changes. The composition, they get more muscle tone that keeps that lean muscle and it burns off the fat, so their whole body just transforms. But maybe their weight doesn't fluctuate that much. Or it does in the beginning, and they stop and they're like, oh no, I'm not losing weight, but their body continues to change. It's really interesting. So how you feel is my personal favorite. It costs no money, and But some people really want to know exactly, and it's good too to know if certain things are kicking you out of ketosis that maybe you didn't realize. So having a way to test is good, and you can find lots of those kind of things online and order them. That's where that slide went. We talked about that. Okay. So I just wanted to end by saying that a complete ketogenic lifestyle incorporates all aspects of healthy living. So it's treating your food as medicine. It's healing your gut biome. It's taking supplements that you might need. It's not in our soils. So you're not getting what we got 100 years ago, and we're not even getting what they get in Europe and other countries. America's like the worst. We've depleted our soils so thoroughly. So sometimes we need to take something to make sure we're getting our minerals and our vitamins. Protein cycling, we didn't talk about that, but that's actually a really good way to mix things up. What happens, the human body is so smart that it adjusts to whatever we're doing. So if we do keto diet for a while, the body's like, oh, okay, we're doing this, okay. And it adjusts, and then we stop maybe getting to the goal that we want. And so we have to mix it up to kickstart the body back into doing what we want it to do. And so one way to do that is the protein cycling. We talked about the carb cycling, where every once in a while you can add a good carb. But the protein cycling is where you eat normal amounts of protein one day, and then the next day, very low protein. Next day, high protein, low protein. Some people do just that. They don't even do the ketogenic diet. They just focus on the protein. And they found that helps with anti-aging. It's really interesting. So you're just constantly making your body have to adjust, and it's good to do that. Intermittent fasting or a reduced schedule eating, exercise, good sleep, meditation, limiting stress, and getting lots of healthy sunshine and connecting with the earth. It's all part of it. All healthy practices fit together, and I love that God made our bodies this way that we can lose weight. There's ways to do it that work, and I love this diet. It works, and I hope that I can help other people to experience what I've experienced, which is not just weight loss, but more energy and a revived life, honestly. So I hope that you got some good information, and if you can remember any questions, because that was so long, you can ask them now.
This may not be very pertinent, but I'm curious about food sourcing because I want to buy the most, valuable, healthy food, but also budget conscious.
I know. So do you go to Costco?
Yes.
I love that. What about Trader Joe's? Did you
I have
go
been
there?
since they opened. Yes.
There's a few things there that are like, oh, that's a really good price. Some things you're like, that's expensive. But I know you can get really good sourced organic things there, but they're not, cheap. Like a couple of steaks at Trader Joe's was like $16. They're really small, but they're like grass-fed finished, the best of everything. Or I've seen that with salmon too, fish. It's about $16 for 2 little fillets of fish. So I do not know cheap source. I'm thinking if you can find like an organic farmer or something, then you could get a cow you could freeze and that kind of thing. Or going in with people on a cow and you divide it up, and that would be probably the cheapest way to go. And then get the bones and you can make bone broth out of it too. But if you find anything cheap, I'd like to know. But I love that Costco is getting more and more organic things. And other places besides Utah are much better about organic things than here. Like Las Vegas, I go down there and it's like, oh my gosh, this Costco has so much stuff. So I know it's a struggle. It's not like Europe. Europe, like everywhere you go, they demand organic. So if you go around to the different sandwich shops, they're all organic, best of everything, because they're all competing with each other, and the people will not eat the crap. They demand the organic. So it comes to a point of Americans getting to as far as they've gone. And Europeans are generally trimmer than Americans. It's interesting. Okay. I'm so glad you guys came. It's so much better to have an audience. Thank you.